I'm a little disheveled today, but we're gonna just run with it. Headphone highlights. Hello, I'm Master Marslander, and this is the R70x Refine, a collaboration between Audio-Technica and Apos Audio to develop this new kind of tuned and tooled version of the classic and much beloved Audio-Technica R70x. The new refined version has a new kind of golden colorway, has new pads, and some new tuning involved as well. But most notably, this is a super limited run headphone, only 1,000 of which have been produced. A little bit later in this video, we're going to have a very strong comparison between the Refine and the classic version of the R70x, so we can get a really kind of strong understanding of what exactly has changed here, and if it's a change that we want or would rather try to avoid. The ATH-R70x Refine. Look at this thing. This is a pretty headphone. It's pretty striking with this, gold grill on the front here. A lot more striking and a lot more kind of pop than you get out of the original R70x. And you're going to see when we do a direct comparison, the build construction is extremely similar, if not in many ways identical to the original R70x. So we're going to go ahead and just take a deeper look at the build of this thing. And first and foremost, the first thing you're going to notice about the Refine here, much like with the original R70x, is how incredibly light it is. There are some metal pieces being used here, but there's also a fair bit of plastic pieces being used. And when you're touching this for the first time and feeling it in your hand, you might actually be excused for thinking the plastic feels kind of cheap. Because it kind of does, like the plastic here on the wings. I don't know. It feels just kind of like light and cheap. But the key word there was light. This is such an incredibly lightweight headphone, and that's, I think, a lot to do with the materials being used. So I'm willing to excuse maybe the kind of less premium feel of the materials because of just how insanely light this thing ends up being in your hand and, as we talk about in the comfort section, on your head. Onto the face of the grill here. The grill here is a metal grill with our Apos Audio-Technica logo right there. The ring around the grill where the driver is being housed, the chassis, is plastic. Going up into the yoke here, we have a little bit of swivel, just a tiny bit, enough that's going to be, I think, fine for most people. But, and this is a little unfortunate, there is no tilt. I can't tilt the headphone in and out. Tilt's going to happen from basically the headband and how it positions on your head. So I don't have a way of actually adjusting the chassis of the driver in any way. It's just going to be where it is on your head, and you got to just kind of hope for the best. But again, we'll talk more about that when it comes to comfort. From the yoke, we have this large spring steel headband. It is actual steel, punched out. Again, I think this is probably an effort to reduce weight, which I think really does succeed. And then the big kind of selling point of these Audio-Technica headphones like this are the wings, the wing system, which is a very interesting system. Okay, it's striking to look at, and it is functional, but, and I've expressed this before with some Audio-Technica headphones, this is always kind of like a point of failure for the headphone in terms of like, this is where if any part of this headphone is going to break, it's most likely going to be here on the wings. But mine has lasted just fine. I have not had my wings broken yet. But yeah, the wing system is how you adjust actual height. There's no adjusting the headband in any way. There's not even any kind of elastic. You just have the tension from these wings, and how your head's going to fit is going to depend on how the wings fit on you. I'll try to get a little bit of a closer look here. So these wings, they're, again, plastic, and they have this little hinge right here to let them kind of tilt a little bit like so. But there's a little spring that kind of gives you resistance, and that's how it determines, again, the kind of the height on your head. And then on the underside of the wings is this very soft foam. It's not super dense. As you can see, I can squeeze it down pretty flat, but it is very, very light. And it is soft. So ideally, it's going to be able to sit on your head and be nice and light and fluffy and comfortable, without creating too much kind of like clamp force on the top of your head. We do have dual termination entry into the headphone. These are 2.5 millimeter entries that actually have a locking system. And I'll show you that when we get to looking at some of the accessories, and you'll see how it works with the cable. So yes, it's a dual entry cable that does go insert deep and lock. A lot what we kind of see in some of the Sennheiser single inputs cables. It's a similar cable to that, and but it's dual entry. So the pads are removable, as you can see. There you go, and there's your driver right there. Pretty cool. And then the pads themselves are pretty dang nice. Something I do see asked about a lot in terms of the difference between the R70x Refine and the original R70x has to do with the pads. Yes, the pads are different on the Refine here. Slightly different. And I do show that off a little bit later when we do the direct comparison with the original R70x. So you can take a look at that. But yes, do note the pads are a little bit different. So keep that in mind. But they are still very good pads. They are a velour pad. They're very, very soft. And the velour is wrapped around the outer rim. You have velour on the face. And then on the inside, you're not going to be able to see this on camera, I don't think. But the inside has, there you go, kind of a smooth protein leather. And also this kind of dampening fabric as well. And it does just kind of wrap around the lip of the driver chassis as a standard kind of pad would do. I will note, and again, we'll talk a bit more about this when we get to comfort, but the actual like kind of ear space, the ear volume for the pad's a little bit small. As you can see, it is kind of perfectly circular. So there's not much of an ear shape going on here. And we'll talk how that affects your comfort, but it's not, just not a whole lot of space. If I'm gonna use a Zio reference, it's like a 2.5 knuckle space for your ear here. And while we have the pad off, you'll see that we also, around the driver here, is some foam. This is for tuning, and I wouldn't remove that if I were you. But hey, if you want to get into modding and do something crazy, you do you. But yeah, that foam is there for tuning. Very neat to look at. The headphone is labeled left and right for your left and right channels, though they are extremely subtle and it took me some time to find. I'll do my best to show this off as best as I possibly can, but right there is the L, and then the R is on the other side. So it's right there, that very subtly little printed L indicates your left and right channels. And then right underneath the wing, also very subtle and very hard to kind of see unless you know it's there. I'm going to do my best to show this off, but right there is your sticker to indicate that, yeah, made in Japan. So cool. There's your build. There are a lot of things that I like about this headphone. A lot of things. But there is one thing about this headphone, one little thing that confuses me and really irritates me. This is an extremely limited headphone. Only 1,000 of these has ever been made, right? 1,000, that's it. That's a very limited thing. It's a collector's item. With it being such a limited run product, why on earth is it not numbered? Why? I can't really believe it. Why would you do that? Why would you have this super crazy collectible thing, this super limited run product, and not number them? It'd be great to know. Is this, the Model 12? Is it Model 42? Is it Model 999? That would be great to know. But none of us will ever know because they're not numbered. And there's no certificate of authenticity either. So you just don't know. No one knows. There's no way to know. It's just a Refine. You have a Refine. Which Refine do you have out of that 1,000 made? Who the hell knows? Really obnoxious. And that, man, I can't get over the missed opportunity there. What a missed opportunity to make these even more just kind of cool and then more of a conversation starter, but also to give them more value. It'd be really cool if they were numbered. Why Apos? Why Audio-Technica? Why didn't you number them? Now let's take a quick look at the physical differences between both models. And spoiler alert, there isn't much. They're pretty damn identical. The shell, the body, the chassis, the headband's exactly the same. The wing system is exactly the same. the pattern, the die cuts, everything is exactly the same. They are, in terms of build, pretty much identical. The only really noticeable difference is right here on the grill, where obviously the Refine has this gold honeycomb pattern, while the original just has a black honeycomb pattern. Now you might notice, looking at them side by side, man, you can see the driver a lot better behind the grill on the original R70X than you can with the Refine. But that's not because the honeycomb pattern of the grill is thinner on the original. It's not. They're actually the same thickness in terms of that honeycomb pattern grill. It's just because it's black. I don't know. It's like an optical illusion of some sort. For some reason, the black lets you see through it a lot easier than the gold. But it's not a matter of the grill being smaller or thinner. They are the exact same grill, the exact same honey pattern that is the exact same thickness, or at least really, really freaking close. Not enough to make that big of a difference. But yeah, you definitely can see the driver a lot easier in the original than you can with the Refine. The only other difference on the exterior here is with the logo. So here on the original, we have Audio-Technica ATH-R70x. That's all it says there. Whereas on the Refine, Audio-Technica Apos ATH-R70x Refine. So with the Refine, of course, we get Apos included on the branding here, and then Refine also included there with the model. So they're basically the exact same build with one other exception, and that would be the pads. Now, in both cases, the pad is a velour pad. It's a nice soft velour along the outside rim, along the face, and then the inside of the pad is actually a bit of a smoother protein leather. And the pad in the Refine is very much the same. It's a velour pad on the face, on the outside, and the inside is that, again, that kind of smoother protein leather. But they're not the same pads. Oh no. You can probably see here side by side just how much thicker the pad is on the Refine. And not only is the Refine pad thicker in terms of like its density, but the piling on the velour with the Refine is also a higher pile velour than it is on the original. The original velour is a bit more smoother feeling, while the Refine velour is a lot softer feeling. So the Refine has thicker velour pads that are also higher pile velour pads than the original. But other than that, other than the grill and the pad, basically identical in terms of their build and construction. Accessories that come with your Refine, starting with the cable. Now, full disclosure, I can't find the original cable that came with the Refine, so what I have here instead is the cable that comes with the regular R70X, because it's the same cable. You get the same cable that you get with the R70X, with the Refine, except if I remember correctly, the one that came with the Refine was shorter than this one, which I appreciated because this is way too much cable, man. But in any case, it is a dual entry 2.5mm cable, and it does have those kind of Sennheiser 500 series terminations where it inserts deep and then twists to lock. There's a little locking lip at the tip of the termination there. I'll go ahead and show you how this works. It just goes in until you kind of get it reseated, and then you have these little lines right here, and on the actual cable termination, you twist until those lines line up, and now the cable is locked in. You have to then twist to pull it back out. But yeah, it's just a dual entry 2.5mm locking lip cable. This termination isn't my favorite because it's just a little bit proprietary. It's a little more difficult to find like nicer cables of this termination, especially dual entry of this termination. Single entry is a little bit easier because it's a bit more common, but the dual entry is a little less common, so it's a little bit harder to find custom cables of this type, but they are out there. And in fact, here's the one I got for myself because I really wanted there to be a gold cable with this thing. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't come with some sort of gold cable. And the gold cable I have here is, I mean, I guess maybe a bit more coppery. It doesn't really match particularly well, but it is at least a bit more interesting than just a plain black cable. And if you are interested in a cable like this, I'll have a link in the description. It's a nice cable. It's got some weave to it. I just bought this on Amazon. It wasn't that much money at all. Just nice. Also terminates, in my case, to a 4.4 balanced pentagon as opposed to the stock cable's 1/4 inch, which also is an adapter that screws off to reveal a simple 3.5mm. So yeah, I do wish that it came with a nicer cable, like a bit more kind of showy of a cable, a bit more themed cable. This cable's fine. It functions perfectly well. It's just, you know, it's got some memory retention issues. It tends to hold its shape a little bit. It's not very interesting to look at. It's just kind of a cheap rubbery cable. So I do wish that they included some sort of special cable with the Refine. That being said, Apos' kind of plan with the Refine ecosystem here includes a cable. They have this really beautiful purple braided cable that they advertised to go along with this headphone. And it is a beautiful, gorgeous cable, but it's a separate purchase. It doesn't come included with the R70X Refine. You have to buy it separately. And that's a bit of a bummer because it is a very pretty cable, but not included. So here's your stock cable there. And then the only other thing that comes with your Refine is this bag. It's a nice, just soft, velvety black bag. No branding on it. Nothing. It's just a bag. It's a nice bag. I mean, there's not, it's just a very bag-like bag. I don't know really what else to say about it, but I'm fine with the bag. It's a nice bag. It's very soft. Headphones fit in there just fine. But yeah, this is it. It's actually a pretty simple package. You don't get a whole lot with your package, but here it is. Comfort and fit for the R70X Refine. And really quick, I did actually find the included cable that came with the Refine, and sure enough, yes, it is shorter, a lot shorter. I think it's about maybe 6 feet. So a much more comfortable and useful length for me. But yes, comfort for the Refine. And yes, I recognize I'm wearing a hat, but all my comments here are how the headphone has felt with and without hats. So first and foremost, this headphone weighs absolutely nothing. This is one of the lightest headphones besides like a COS headphone, here we go, right here, look at that. Besides like a KPH-40, I mean, this weighs nothing. It's ridiculous how light these headphones are. Ridiculous. And they are a full-size headphone. In terms of the full over-ear size headphone, they are maybe a little bit smaller than usual, but they are still a full-size over-ear headphone, and they weigh practically nothing. It is absurd how lightweight these things are on your head. The wings here, they're fine. Totally fine. No issue at all. I barely even feel them. Even without the hat, I barely even feel them. The kind of tension you get from the springs in those wings does like nothing to kind of irritate you. They just fold onto your head. It's a total non-issue. And the floppiness that you saw in kind of like the overview and of the build of the wings, that actually kind of works to their benefit when they're actually on your head, because they just, I don't know, man, they kind of like just rest there like little clouds on your head. It's remarkable. You don't feel it at all. The only sense that you have on your head that there is a headphone there is coming right around the ears. It's not necessarily coming from clamp force. Clamp force is also super crazy manageable, really, really easy. I'm not feeling a whole lot of pressure at all. The only thing I am feeling, the only kind of, it's not necessarily a discomfort, but something that I am noticing with the fit is that the opening, the actual space within the ear pad here is just a little bit small for my ears. My ears are maybe, a little bit larger than normal, perhaps, but the opening in here is just a little bit small. So what's happening to me when I'm wearing these, I have the top of my ear is kind of getting folded inward a little bit as it's pressing up against the inside of the pad right here. So it's kind of going in and getting pushed a little bit back towards my head like that. And then I think, let me double check here. Yeah, likewise, the very, very bottom of my earlobe is also touching the bottom of the pad. So both the top of my ear and the bottom of my ear are being kind of pushed a little bit against my head. It's not like it's painful or fatiguing to have your ears doing that, but it's just a little bit, it feels a little odd. It just feels a little bit odd. But in terms of the actual comfort of it, it's kind of a non-issue. It doesn't bother me even through really, really long listening sessions. These are crazy open. I hear absolutely everything. It basically doesn't hardly sound any different in terms of the passive like isolation of the headphone. It is so transparent. It doesn't really sound any different having the headphone on my head versus not having the headphone on my head. The transparency of these things, the openness of these things is wild. Really, really wild. One of the most transparent sounding open backs I've ever heard. Quickly going back to the cable, pretty much no microphonics. I don't really hear it on my shirt hardly at all. If I really like fling it around like crazy, I'll hear a little bit of rattling kind of right here at the connecting ends, but that's pretty typical when you're going really aggressive with it. But really no kind of microphonic sound, so that's also great. So yeah, when it comes to comfort, these are insanely comfortable. Insanely comfortable. The light, I can't get over how light these damn things are. It is ridiculous. And because the clamp force is almost non-existent and the headband doesn't really feel like there's anything there, the wings make it so it doesn't really feel like I have anything on top of my head. The only thing that's holding this back, I think, from being an absolute cloud 9 comfort of a headphone is how my ears are folding into the pad. And I think that's very much more an issue for me than it's probably going to be for you, because if you have smaller ears than me, which is probably pretty likely, it'll probably not be an issue for you. But regardless, these are ridiculously comfortable. Ridiculously comfortable. I almost want to give them a cloud 9 anyway, but we're going to stick with the 8.5 clouds of comfort. They're so close to being a cloud 9. And the other reason why I'm just barely not giving these the cloud 9 that they almost deserve is because the R70X Classics, the pads on these are just a little bit larger in ear volume around the pad. So with the Classics, I put these guys on, my ear is no longer being folded against my head. It's still like getting a little bit compressed within the ear pad itself, but the pad is not pushing my ear against my head. My top of my ear is just kind of pushing up against the pad here. The volume in here is just larger, just that much smaller of a difference, that much larger of a difference, that it upgrades the comfort of the Classic with these Classic pads. The Classic R70X is a cloud 9. 100%. This is one of the most comfortable headphones on the planet. It is absurd. The lightweight of this thing and the way the pads feel on your head, and again, having just that little extra space within the rim of the pad here, these are so insanely comfortable, and is the only reason why the Refine doesn't get its 9 clouds of comfort, because it's just a little tiny bit smaller in ear volume in those pads. Sound performance for the R70X Refine. And pay close attention to what we talk about here regarding the Refine, because afterwards we're going to have a direct comparison with the Classic and talk about, not just how the Refine sounds, but how things are different, if at all, to the Classic. What a pleasing sounding headphone. Insanely pleasing. It is one of the most enjoyable kind of sound profiles and sound signatures that you can get out of a headphone, I think. The kind of sound that most anyone is going to be able to enjoy. I really don't know how you can complain about the sound that this thing produces. It is lovely, pleasant, and insanely enjoyable. Good sub-bass performance, and it actually provides this almost pressure-like sensation from the sub-bass, especially in the most bottom frequencies. The mid-bass is surprisingly mature. It has some good kind of slam and punch to it, but holds back to kind of avoid any gratuitous muddiness. It's a clean and transparent bass range overall that avoids clouding up your details and maintains a really well-balanced tuning. The mid-range is where they really shine though. Mid-range is delightful. Truly delightful, especially in the vocal range. Vocals are natural and forward, and they just have this beautiful realism to them. And the kind of timbre being presented here from the vocal range is actually really reminiscent of stuff like the HD6XX, which is very impressive. The mid-range has this wonderful subtlety to it. It's open and airy and spacious, and then just kind of freeing. There's this sort of subtle smoothness that's happening in the mid-range, not because it's adding this kind of unnecessary amount of warmth to it. It's just, I don't know, leveling it out, smoothing it out just enough that it helps it just feel really cozy and comfortable, but it maintains this refinement to it that makes sure that you don't feel like you're really missing any information. You're still getting the resolution that you want, but it's so easy to listen to. The high mids offer a great sense of impact and lovely amounts of texture. Listening to MTV's live version of Korn's Throw Me Away, it really brings out the snap and rattle of those taiko drums. They sound so visceral and so kinesthetic. And it delivers this very layered and complex, but also beautifully acoustic performance. The treble range is also very well textured, presenting these really bright and shimmery brass instruments, especially from the likes of something like Rush from the Seatbelts. Now, the top end is perhaps just a little bit smoothed out and cut off at the very top edge. Like the very, very most brilliant section of that treble range is just nicked off. And the result of this is that it's a very easy to listen to top end. I don't really want to say it's relaxed. It is a little bit smoothed out, a little bit evened out. That makes it just a lot more easy to listen to. It makes it super, super pleasing. But at the same time, it didn't leave me wanting for more. I never felt like I wasn't getting enough information in the top end. Soundstage. Oh boy. Oh boy, the soundstage. These are massive, huge. And like I said, they're one of the most transparent sounding open backs I've ever heard. So it really is just like the sound is allowed to just go and just almost with an infinite amount of space just stretch out. Huge soundstage, wonderful, super crazy, realistic, and immersive. They're big, open, and full, and have this real sense of grandeur to them. Imaging is refined. Are you tired of my jokes here yet? Everything is just remarkably well positioned and very, very precise. You have a great sense of where things are being kind of presented to you in both a horizontal and vertical way. But there is also an extra effort put into the tuning on this that gives you this sense of depth as well, this Z-axis of information. So you feel positioning in terms of distance as well. It's exceptionally good imaging. The dynamics in the R70 are very fun, very engaging, very energetic, while maybe not being the most dramatic. And because it holds off on kind of the real dramatics of it, it really helps keep the headphone in this kind of focused realism that they're going for. When it comes to gaming, oh my God, insanely fun, insanely immersive. This is, I mean, probably the best gaming headphone, the best gaming experience I've heard in a headphone in like under a $300 range. Oh boy, it is so delightful. The space that you get, the sense of distance and space and the imaging of where things are coming from, it is just so fun to the core. And the gaming experience is just so engaging, so immersive. You really feel like you're just there. You feel like you're there. Absolutely phenomenal gaming experience. The difference between these two headphones in terms of sound is like a subtle change of color on both sides of the same coin. The Refine here is a tad warmer than the classic R70X. It has more bass production as well. Classic R70X has a slightly wider soundstage and a better sense of separation. The Refine delivers a more evenly balanced profile, while the classic presents a more dynamic experience with a little more emphasis on the high mids as opposed to the Refine's slight bass lift. Side by side, if I absolutely had to choose which sound profile of these two that I would prefer, I have to be completely honest here and say that in general, I actually kind of prefer the classic. I do enjoy the extra meat in the bass range that we get from the Refine, but I feel more immersed and energized by the classic's airiness and more percussive highs. So does this mean that you should just skip the Refine altogether? Not exactly. So word on the street regarding these headphones is that the tonal difference, the sonic difference in the tuning that you are getting out of these, what we just described, the difference that we just described, word on the street is that difference, that tuning is happening entirely with the pads. If this is true, then can we simply just get the classic R70X sound on the Refine and the Refine sound on the classic by just performing a simple pad swap? Yes. Yes, you do. That's exactly what's happening here. The sound difference, the tuning, the sonic difference between these two headphones is happening entirely in the pads. I put the classic pads on the Refine, it sounds like the classic. I put the Refine on the classic, it sounds like the Refine. This is really good news because both sets of pads, the Refine pads and the classic pads, are available for purchase separately. While the Refine itself, limited to 1,000 units, is no longer available for purchase. You can no longer buy a R70X Refine brand new. You can, however, still buy the pads. So if you were unfortunate enough to not be able to pick up a Refine while it was still available, that's okay. If you really want to get the Refine sound, just go buy the pads. And then get yourself a classic if you don't already have one, and you got the same thing. You got the same thing, man. It's the best of both worlds. And like I said, both sets of pads for both versions of this headphone are available for purchase right now. They're still out there. You could still get them, and I'll put links in the description so you can go and buy whichever pad you want to get whatever sound you might prefer. I truly think that this is just great news for people who both own the Refine and who don't, because you get to have, in terms of sound quality, you have your choice. You have a free choice to make. It's out there. Just go give it a shot. So the Refine is easily one of the lightest headphones that I own. It is one of the most comfortable headphones that I own. It's one of the most kind of striking designs for a headphone in this caliber, in this category, and also one of the most enjoyable sounding headphones in this price range. So all this leads to the question, does the R70X Refine belong on the headphone wall? But the question is actually a little bit different this time, because it's not so much a question of whether or not the Refine belongs on the wall. The real question is, which headphone, the Audio-Technica R70X Classic or the Audio-Technica plus Apos Audio R70X Refine, which one of these two headphones belongs on the headphone wall? Both of these are fantastic headphones. Fantastic headphones. And fortunately, with just a simple pad swap, you get the best of both worlds. So with that in mind, it really is kind of a no-brainer that because we can get the sound produced from these headphones to be basically identical depending on the pads we use, obviously then, the gold limited edition version is the one that's going to go and sit on the headphone wall. To be perfectly fair, the Refine was kind of already on the wall, but we never got around to actually reviewing it until now. So it's not even that it gets to go on the headphone wall, but more that it gets to stay on the headphone wall. So congratulations, Refine. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, consider subscribing and hitting that like button to let me know that you enjoyed yourself. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.